I was
Okay.
having public sex in my room with my then girlfriend. At that moment, I realized that I was going to have the worst diarrhea of my life. And
While you're inside of
I
her.
was inside of her. And
This is a crazy
then I had
thing.
that thought of like, well, just like, let's just do this and then I could do that after. And then there was that second thought of like, that's not going to work because I'm not going to make it till after.
Hello and welcome back to Friend Crush Pod. Today, my friend crush is Lucas Zelnick. He is an unbelievable touring stand-up comedian. He has done so much in the industry so far, and I'm so excited to see where he goes next. He's unbelievably funny, so you guys have to check him out if you haven't already. And today, we talked about a few different things. We talked a lot about stand-up, a lot about like the process around it, how he got into the Cellar, which he just did, how he felt around his first big theater, how he blanked on stage one time, and of course, how he got diarrhea. So you guys definitely are gonna wanna stick around and listen to it. It's so great. In a little bit from me, I have some fun stuff coming up. As always, if you want to see me live, please subscribe to my mailing list so you know where I'll be and so I know to come to your city. I should be going on the road in the fall. And yeah, if you live in New York, you guys are the first to hear it, but I am starting a summer series where I will be doing a show starting mid-July through the end of August, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna have a lot of my friends on it, and that'll be at Sesh Comedy Club. So New Yorkers, come out, and otherwise, if you're not in New York, sign up for my mailing list. I would love to have you. I would love to hang out. Anyway, okay, great. This is a really fun episode and also kind of serious at times. So can't wait for you guys to listen. Let's get into it.
I'm really bad at photos. Really bad.
Photos are awful.
Photos are a skill that's different from anything that we do and also different from acting, but I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
You would think if you could act or at least do stand-up comedy, photos just to smile organically would be easy.
Just normal.
Yeah, but I have this dead-eyed smile where I go like this.
Well, you know what I think it is? For some reason, it's like more vulnerable because you can't use your personality at all. And that's what we lead with.
Right.
Because we're used to being like, oh, I'm funny, I'm gonna make you laugh. And then they're just like, no, shut the fuck up and like
just face.
Just face.
Right.
And you're like, well, that's not really my strength. That's not really like what I like to do. I'm like, you can't look me directly in the eyes. Like, I don't want that.
That is true. It's a little harrowing to hear because I identify these days as like a hot person, but just face, I don't know that I...
Yeah, face alone.
Just face,
You think face and body is your strength?
No, but now that you've said
What's
that, you
your
clearly
favorite part
think
about
that.
yourself?
No, I meant like...
I'm like,
I always
you're
thought it was
hot in
like
the body?
face, smile. I always thought it was like face plus... I have a way about me that's maybe like charming. Charm in face. That's what I thought.
Oh, interesting. I wouldn't have found you charming ever.
But thank you. Well, and thank you for the compliment about my body. I appreciate that.
Well, I just thought because like you work out, right? So I thought that's like
I don't know what you're talking about.
Gaslighting
You
me?
must think I do. No, I don't. I've never even seen a gym.
Oh.
No, I do work out. But I have gone through phase. I had a moment during COVID where I was like, let me push my body to its physical limit and see what happens.
Okay.
Because I grew up, I was Skeletor, like total Skeletor.
Right.
Then never worked out or anything. And I was like so naturally skinny, lanky, didn't like that. Was the skinny guy.
Right.
Then
didn't get any puss.
No, I did, but it was in New
Yeah.
York, you know?
Okay.
I was a funny Jew in New York.
And it worked.
Then I went to college. Then I didn't really get any puss because it was more, what was selected for was like boarding school bro, amazing hairline, straight hair, fast, like physically fast.
Physically fast. You guys were racing each other?
Yeah, like just like strong and fast.
How are people deciding who's fast?
Christians care about who's fast.
Jews care about who's smart.
Yes, and who's funny and who's charming. And then you get to like, I got to Williams where it was very like everyone came from prep schools and it was more like whose hair is straight, who has a pointy nose, and who's fast.
Okay, so everyone
That's a
did
Christian
track?
courting.
I don't understand.
No, everyone did their sports, and if you were good at your sport, that was hot. And if you're good at your sport, you're probably fast. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So...
Some sports don't involve running.
No, but even in hockey, you could be fast if you're skating quickly. Lacrosse, running, soccer,
thinking more
running,
like
football, running. What
shot
sports
put.
Yeah, I was like,
No
what
running.
niche sports
Ping
are you
pong.
thinking of? Yes,
No
but then
running.
you're getting no puss if you're on the Williams College ping pong team. If there is one, I bet there is. There's
That sounds like something that would be there.
Yeah, they find a way. But so then I didn't get much there, and I was skinny, and then I got skinny fat in college, like really skinny arms, but just a paunch.
Because you were drinking?
Yeah, so much drinking.
Beautiful.
It was like my freshman. It wasn't 15, but it was like just 5 right around the gut, and that was like not a good look. And then I was like, I started to get in shape after college a little. Like I just went to the gym to try and induce within myself a work ethic. I was like, if I wake up every morning and do a thing, then I'll be good at a job. Because this was before I found comedy, and I was like, how am I going to be like a successful business person?
So you were like, what is that guy? Like Goggins? David
Yeah,
Goggins?
yeah.
You're like, wake up at 5 a.m. and like, so I can teach myself to be a man.
100%. I was
Did
like,
someone tell you to do that, or you just kind of self-identified?
No, my dad did that, and he's a successful businessman. And so I was like, he wakes up every morning and he does this workout. And I was like, why don't I do that with him? And then I got like really into like my dad can mentor me to be a businessman vibes. And I was not good at business, which was the hardest.
That was the problem.
Yeah, I ultimately was able to train myself to work out and work hard, but it didn't give me a capacity to be good at a job that I wasn't good at. But then I started doing that. Then I started working out. Then COVID happened, and I was like, let's fucking push this to the limit.
Sure.
I put on like 20 pounds of muscle.
Beautiful.
I was poofy. All my biceps were huge. I couldn't itch my back because my arms were so big, and my head is really small. So I looked like I had like the Beetlejuice.
You're like Popeye.
Yeah, I literally had like a little tennis ball head. I actually have a picture of it.
You look like you're on steroids. I would love to see.
It's pretty crazy. Like if you have to give me a sec. You have to fill the airtime while I look for this because I'm not like good at my phone. But
okay,
I think I know when it was. It was in August. What was the year?
Of COVID?
Yeah, was it 2020, right?
It might have been 2021 if you were doing it.
No, because that was the Sesh summer. Sorry. It's just an
Wait,
illusion.
when did you start Sesh?
21. So that was after year 1 of COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you ran Sesh
I found it already.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's his background. So that's kind of like, he's
that's
pretending.
so random.
He's like, oh, wait, it's so weird that I like have this.
Okay, look how crazy this is.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, you liked
show
that.
Show the camera. Because you're also like tan.
Yeah. I was definitely hot, but like it was.
Your head looks, well, because the camera stretches out your head in that picture.
I was going to say, my head doesn't look like that in real life.
No,
it's
your
more
head's
narrow.
skinnier.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're so skinny.
But I was like 185, and now I'm like 170.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's my body. Thanks for bringing it up.
And thank you for giving us like a brief history on your body.
Yeah. I always like to start every podcast with a history of my body. If you want to go find other podcast appearances of me, I'd say skip the first 10, 15 because it's
just like all body.
Yeah. I come in, I find a way to sort of like ham fist in a conversation about my face, hoping the host will mention my body. If they do, I'll kind of go on that rant. And if not, I'll just go on that rant anyway.
Yeah, you just kind of, which is good because you're a man. So you kind of just like talk about whatever's
going on in here.
Yeah, that's good.
You're sort of like the guardrails in bowling. Where it's like what you say can impact the direction of our conversation.
Right.
But I could also just throw the ball to another area.
Lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could just sort of toss it overhand
like
into the other.
Or I could just bang off of it and go whichever way I want.
Right.
Know?
Okay, good. Glad we like set up the parameters of the combo and like how we're going to proceed.
For sure.
Wait, okay. So you went to Williams.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting. Did you like it? That was my dream school.
Really?
I got deferred and then rejected.
You went to Oberlin?
I went to Vassar.
Vassar. Oh, but that's same world.
Same world. Similar
same
vibes.
world as Williams. I'm sure it was, practically speaking, not very different from the experience you would have had.
Yeah, I think Williams sounds like a little bit more like elite than like Vassar was. Vassar is more like hippie.
Mm-hmm. But still no one knows Williams. So it's...
Which is funny because it is an amazing school.
It's good. But the way I used it, I think... How much did you use college to figure out the actual path that you'd be on now versus any other thing?
I would say my college experience was so bad that I had to like find myself and who I was at my core to be happy in that time. And that helped me a lot. But it was because my college sucked
It
and
sucked.
gave me nothing.
You hated it.
Hated it.
Oh,
And
okay.
everyone was like mean to me. I didn't fit in. It was like the weirdest thing ever. It was so weird. I felt like I was in like a bizarro world for 4 years. I went abroad my entire junior year and I was like, I'm just out of here. Because I didn't want to transfer because I was like worried that I would then have to like catch up in some way or like waste time. So I was like, I'll just fucking like.
Were you a loser?
Kind of, yeah.
But you were doing comedy stuff?
I did sketch comedy.
Yeah.
So that was actually the most pivotal like thing that has like shaped my life is that I learned how to write comedy in college.
I think that is really important because I had sort of the opposite experience. I was cool.
Sure.
And
Sick.
I liked that.
Yeah.
But I was fitting in according to like a set of rules and people that, given that this was the path I ultimately chose, sort of like strayed me directly away from that path. Because Williams cool is like you're a preppy athlete, college athlete who's like gonna be a banker, and you're not even gonna be like a successful banker. You're gonna be like a upper mid-level banker.
You're just like an in the mix banker.
Yeah, like
getting like a Rolex watch with your like bonus every year.
Exactly. Like bump into a guy in the West Village and if he didn't go to Williams, he's probably the kind of guy that would have been cool there.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? And so that was who was cool. And I decided that it was important to me to be cool and to be liked.
Well, also you were 18, so like that's gonna.
Yeah, and at the time when I was graduating high school, I was like, I want to be like a bro. I want to wear like a lacrosse penny, and I want to be friends with the guys on the lacrosse team, and I want to like drive a Land Rover.
Wait, but did you play a sport?
No, I was a competitive skier, and I was going to go there to ski, but I tore my patella tendon.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You were a competitive skier?
I was an extreme skier.
Like, were you good?
Yeah, I was pretty good. I was like maybe top 100 in America. But it wasn't such a deep field. But I was good.
Well, yeah. But did you have to like fly places in high school to like go do skiing? Where were you skiing?
Well, I went to a ski academy in Switzerland when I was in 8th grade. And then after that, I started traveling around doing competitions. And the connection between skiing and comedy is the adrenaline. Like I was very like adrenaline forward. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I will say, like one time, so I was in Switzerland like last summer, and there was like a cliff jump thing that we did where you just like jump off a cliff and like into the water with my friends. And literally like I'd never done anything like that before, and jumping off of that cliff, I was like, oh, this is like comedy.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Genuinely, because like the feeling of like I'm putting myself in like a dangerous situation.
Well, it is funny because like the feeling in skiing of that adrenaline is coming from I could fall, and I saw this happen. I could break, like I could snap my femur, I could break my neck, and it's your body feeling that fear.
Yeah.
And the fear in comedy is your body going, I could do something so socially embarrassing right now that it is akin to physical death. That's like your body is literally like, this could be such a bad outcome for me among those in front of me that my body will perceive this as if I were to have fallen off a cliff onto my head.
Yeah.
So that's
like,
interesting.
When you bomb in comedy, people go, I hate you. They don't go, oh, I didn't like your jokes.
I wish you to be dead.
Yeah, they go, yeah, you suck.
Yes.
And I wish you weren't here.
Yes. And when you get injured, it's scary because there's a long road to recovery. But getting bombing in comedy is worse than injury because it's them seeing you for who you are and rejecting it entirely.
Right. Beautiful.
I'd argue they're not really seeing you for who you are. They're seeing you for someone
an assumption and based on like a piece of
have become. Yeah.
Right.
Like sometimes you say something. I did a bar show last night because I had a bigger show that I was nervous for, and it was a show that I probably wouldn't have done if I didn't have a bigger show.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And up there, I was just kind of like reading off my notes and disrespecting the show.
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, I'm just doing this because I'm too big to be here and I don't need this."
You said that out loud.
Yeah. And I thought I was being
like self-aware, snarky, like satirical.
I knew I was being shitty, but I thought it was in such a way that might have landed well. And someone in the front, I just heard was like, "Jesus." Like, and I was like, yeah, I guess like if that's the reaction, that sounded way too on it. You know what I mean?
Were you in Brooklyn or Manhattan?
As in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
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 I was going to guess
Doesn't
Brooklyn.
land well in Brooklyn. But yeah, I thought I'd bought myself. This was like 8 minutes into the set, and I thought I'd bought myself maybe a little bit of.
Oh, like they know who I am at this point?
Yeah, I don't know what I thought. Because this is the truth of comedy is the second you say it, you immediately know whether what you what you thought was about to happen was totally true or completely off base. And it was one of those where I was like, oh, they'll like this. And then the second I said it, I was like, well, why would they like me at their entertainment experience saying I don't need this and I'm too good to be here?
Right. That's a classic. That's a classic misfire.
Yeah, huge misfire.
Wait, so did you get laughs at all during that set?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's why I was like, I think I could say this.
You can say this and then
I wasn't like killing, but I was first and the host did, I think, 2 minutes because I had to run.
Oh.
So I was like basically hosting. And
you're doing like new material.
The other reason why I said this is because he brought me up. He goes, there's one comedian here tonight who really does this as a job full time. Isn't that cool?
Oh, no.
And then he brought me up. And I was like, yeah, I'm the one that does this as a job. And sorry that I'm using this disrespectfully. I just don't need this. That's why. That's what I said. And I thought it was kind of funny to say, but it wasn't so funny.
But they hated you.
Yeah. And like also if you're like a younger comedian watching that, you're like, fuck you, I guess. Probably.
Well, right. Well, also because if people don't know who you are, but you come up and you say, I don't need this, they're like, well, you're not fucking like Tom Segura. Like,
totally.
I don't give a shit about you.
And that's the problem with the internet now is like to some people you're big and to other people they've never heard of you, and the notion of you saying that is utterly insane and narcissistic.
Right. Because, they can't even fathom that anyone would be your fan.
Exactly. Yeah. It's totally. They're like, you're on a bar show in front of 7 people in Brooklyn and you're saying you're too good for this? Great. I'm too good to be here in the audience, but here we are.
It's a free show. Yeah. Like they begged me to come. Yeah. So same.
Yeah, totally.
Wait, can you say what the big show was that you were prepping for?
It was the Comedy Cellar.
Oh, it was before your audition.
No. This was last. It was my first night doing the Village Underground room.
Oh,
so
sick.
I was nervous to do that. I've just been nervous. I get nervous anyway. I don't know if you feel this when I'm doing stand-up to do just a room that I haven't been to before.
Yeah, I get that.
Because part of my comfort level is like all these little things. I'm like, where's the light? How big is the stage? How high is the ceiling over my head directly? And it like dictates what jokes I think make sense in that space.
Yeah.
Because certain stages are really small and then you have a joke where you have to move a lot and it doesn't really make sense anymore because you have to move differently. And at the Cellar, given that everyone's watching me right now because it's my first week there, I'm feeling a bit of a pressure to sort of control what I can control. Yeah. And so each time I've done one of the new rooms, I've been quite nervous. So last night I was like, it's probably good to just get a set in before I go up. You know?
Yeah, totally. But bombing on a bar show, did that help or hurt?
I think a bomb helps me mostly.
Okay.
Actually, the one part of the bomb that really hurt was me saying that. Because I was like, ooh, I came off like, I don't mind a bomb because it strengthens my resolve.
Right.
But coming off really arrogant the way that I did is something that I'm prone to. And it's something that I'm prone to in front of audiences of all types. And so when I enter that space, which I try not to enter, but I teeter, I live on the edge of Unlikable.
That's so funny.
And I like to stay on the right side of the line, sometimes with my toes. I think if your toes are over the edge of Unlikable, it's kind of cute. Because it's like, it's like, ooh, do we like him or not? That's kind of fun.
Right.
But then if you really take a step over the edge, it's sort of like you could fall.
Do you feel like you do that in your regular social life?
Yeah. Well, my experience of my social life for a long time was that oftentimes I'd say something. I got raised in a family where the view was, if it's true, it can't be mean.
That's so funny.
And
my family was like very similar. Like we're pretty,
And that's obviously an insane value to hold.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But that's how I felt for a long time is like I would just say, I think it's one of the things that has helped me in comedy is that sometimes comedy is just a person saying exactly what they believe in a way that's sort of extreme or harsh. And people think it's like, oh, it's funny that he's sort of distilling everything down to this like very simplistic, extreme way of putting things that like generally feel correct.
Right.
But of course, the flip side of that is, especially if you do it socially, is it's also just mean to be honest often. Do you know what I mean?
To be like completely down the plate, like honest.
Yeah.
Like this is.
People have sensitivities, and usually they're most sensitive about the things that are most true.
Right.
You know?
Well,
if I'm like, you're a trans man, you'd be like, no, I'm not. Not that that'd be mean. That'd be great. But if I just said something that
why did you go to that? You're a male comedian who's straight. You can't leave a podcast room without saying trans like that.
I have like a vibrating butt plug and it starts like shaking if I don't say trans. Oh, trans. Okay. Oh, good. Yeah.
I acknowledge that trans people
yes. Trans people
exist.
They're bouncing around my head all the time. I just got to get it out. And I got to say something slightly cutting about them, and then I can feel better.
And then I can, you know what I love about, okay, so I don't know if this is true for you. I feel like every time I've ever met a dad, had dinner with a dad.
Yeah, trans people come up.
They will give me a new food to try. And they'll be like, do you like this? And then they will talk about trans people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they'll be like, what's going on with this trans?
Yeah, it's a conversation about women swimming over a plate of asparagus.
Yeah. They totally have to talk about women swimming, and they have to be
They
like,
love
like
the
that?
edge cases. They love an
Obsessed,
edge case.
Literally. Like,
first of all, trans people, they're such a small group that to bring up the edge cases of trans people, you're
like,
now talking about literally like a few people in the world.
Literally.
And they love that.
They're just, and they're like, come on. And I'm like, stop.
Yeah. Or they love talking about like how the only way that they would find something funny is if it is offensive. It's like the only thing that's funny to them is it has to be offensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is true. No, it's never true. That's like not true at all.
I think there's a way to be offensive and not at the same time. That's funny to me.
Well, I think that a joke that is good will never be offensive.
Right.
I think if you're using
it's like the
word
Zelnick
offensive,
quote, art is getting away with it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like if someone's saying like that's offensive, either they hate your style of comedy, which is fair, like they can just not participate if other people like you, or you fucked up the joke. Yeah. And like it's not a joke. It's
right.
You're making an offensive statement.
Right.
Which I've done.
That's what bombing is. Yeah.
It's
just like being taken, is not getting away with it. Also, I attributed it to Zelnick, but I think he was quoting someone else. Oh. But whatever. Yeah. Who gives a fuck?
Probably
maybe it is his
man.
quote.
He probably took it
he's
from.
probably a trans person who swims. But the reason why I said the trans thing originally is I'm like, if you say something to someone that's just completely off base. Yeah. I said that because I don't think you're a trans man. Was my point. Okay. Then it doesn't hold a lot of weight. But most of the time, if you're saying something that you believe that's very honest about someone, and it has the capacity to not be a positive thing, right? Then that is like the most offensive.
Yes, so it's what's an example of that for me?
Oh gosh.
You're trying to, insult me.
No, you say what? You know times that I've insulted you.
You did insult me. I've had a rocky start, actually. That's super funny. I don't think about that a lot now.
No,
but
nor do
I.
True. It's water under the bridge.
It is water under the bridge.
I apologize because I was rude in that. I think that's a perfect example.
Yeah. You made an assumption about me that's a really good example. Okay, so for the listeners at home, Lucas was in a bad mood. True. And we were at a party together, and I was complaining about getting somewhere. I had a spot that was in like Queens, and we were in like South Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is going to take me like an hour and a half to get there. And I was like kind of joking about that. And then you were like, just Uber. And I was like, it's like $100 Uber. I'm not going to Uber to my bar show. And then you were like, I forget what you said. You said something like, well, doesn't your dad like pay for that shit? Like you said some like.
I just said something about you having enough money to do that.
Yeah. But it was like the assumption was also like trust fund level, like family money. And I was like, first of all, I don't have that. So thank you for that. I'm not even close. But yeah, it was also, I mean, I grew up in Westchester. I definitely grew up in like a comfortable environment. So it was like, it did touch the edge of something that's true, which is that like.
And I also have my shit about certain things. Like I've made this choice in comedy to be like, so I've experienced, and this isn't about you, but I've experienced like a lot of comedians come from comfortable backgrounds because otherwise why would we do this? It's like so risky, and a
Right,
lot of
to take
people,
risks,
it's
yeah.
like there's different levels of safety net, and it doesn't have to be having a trust fund. It could also just be like knowing that you have a good education that was paid for example, or knowing that like if push comes to shove, there's a house with a spare room you could move into. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And a lot of comedians, I think, are in this position. I think it's like a lot of times it's maybe an extreme one or the other. There's like comedians
Yeah.
with a lot of safety, and then there's
with
comedians with like
absolutely nothing.
zero, and they're
Yeah.
like, fuck it, I might as well just do this thing that's
Right.
like really exciting for me because like otherwise I'd be a waiter, and what's the good of that? Or
Exactly.
sometimes they're like, I actually am a waiter, but I'm also doing this.
Right.
But I've chosen to go out and be like very honest that I come from the cushy background, you know,
Right.
and like everything. And like, for example, my parents bought me an apartment, which allowed me to live so comfortably
Right.
while I made it in comedy. And nowadays I could probably afford to rent that apartment, but it's like I didn't have to. And that helped me.
Right.
It gave me more time. It gave me time to focus, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so then I cast my own, I have this sense of like self-importance that I've chosen to do this thing because I've chosen to be honest about this thing that people sometimes resent me for.
Yeah.
And as a result, I have this sense that like I'm holier than people who don't. Sometimes it's not even people who are being dishonest about it. It's just people who don't choose to talk about it, which is a fair angle. Like there's a lot of alt comics in Brooklyn who want to do observational comedy and they're rich kids, but it's just, they don't see why that would be an interesting topic on stage. So they don't talk about it. And that doesn't mean they're being dishonest. But then I have this like holier than thou. I'm like, I need to tell everyone who's like even a little comfortable that they're comfortable. Because I'm always acknowledging it every time I do something that's like a sign of my own privilege or comfort. But it's also unnecessary. I think I overly focus on it.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like
that's the flip side of it.
Well, have people given you a lot of shit to your face about it, or are you just worried that they're talking behind your back about it?
It's not a lot of shit to my face. I've been banned from 2 comedy clubs on the road for having rich dad.
What?
Yeah.
What? How does that even? What do you mean?
Kind of banned. One of them was a comedy. I'm not gonna say what they are.
Yeah, you do. Get double banned.
I'm gonna say who they are, and I know part of me is like, what else do I have to lose? But then the other side, I'm like, well, I don't want to be the guy that talks shit on comedy clubs because I work so many of them.
Yeah.
But one of them was just like, I don't like, you know, we have limited spots to give people stage time, and I don't really want to give some like rich kid a show. And then the other one, I like audited my check a little bit because when I was out, you know, when I do shows on the road, before I was represented, there would be a lot of mistakes in the checks. Like you negotiate 80% and you get 75, or like, you know, one time like I've been shorted, like people just left out all the added shows off my check. And it's like, we did 2 more shows than this. So like the biggest thing I noticed about comedy clubs is I don't think they're being intentionally dishonest, but I've never seen a mistake in my favor on the check. I've only ever seen a mistake that benefits them. So what I used to do, and this was like just a value I was raised with, is like every time you get paid, you read the line items and you make sure that you got paid for what you did. And you know, if they told you you sold this many tickets and then they put a different number on the check, you say, and it doesn't matter how small it is, you say. And so I went to a guy and the owner, and I audited my check on a very small amount of money on a pretty big check, which I think was a little bit maybe socially unaware, because I think between him knowing that I was a rich kid and me like griping about, I think it was like $200 on a check where $200 was not a big percentage of the check. He was just like, fuck this.
You're done.
He didn't say it to my face, but he was like, I, you know, he's one of these guys that prides himself on being honest and prides himself on giving comedians a really good deal. And even though what I thought I was doing was just having like a black and white, pretty fair conversation about the truth.
Right.
He felt I was sort of accusing him of trying to cheat me, which is not what I was trying to do.
But you did find a discrepancy.
there was an explanation for it, and he wasn't being dishonest, and I was also told something else. I was told the room had a certain capacity.
Yeah.
They had changed the capacity. It was a very small difference.
Oh.
And he thought one capacity, I thought the other, and I was confused about the discrepancy.
Right.
And it would have just been a small explanation, but I think he just felt disrespected by even the implication that the discrepancy could have been.
Right.
I wasn't trying to imply that it was like full of malice, but he got really offended and he was like, "This is so shitty, man." And he said it to my face.
Yeah.
He was like, "You come in here, like I lose money giving comics a good deal," which is true. He gives comics a very good deal, this particular guy. And he was like, "You come in here and you fucking like question me." And I was like, I owned it on the spot. I was like, "You're right. I'm sorry."
Yeah.
I was like, I deal with a lot of mistakes at comedy clubs. I've just learned to audit my checks very closely. I was like, it's not personal. It's not about your club. I agree you give a good deal. I agree you're like a good presence in comedy.
Right.
But after that whole interaction, he was like, I don't need some like New York fucking Jew. No.
Okay.
Yeah, he was an anti-Semite.
Yeah,
I did nothing wrong.
And then he called me the K word. It was really weird.
But that was like a good example of like, I thought I was... Anyway, the question, well, this kind of ties the last two topics together.
Yeah.
One was about me being overly honest and sort of unwilling to see the gray, because the gray area there is just comedy's about relationships.
Yeah.
And if you can tell that you're upsetting someone, then it's actually kind of incumbent upon you to be like, whatever this $200 discrepancy may be, it's not meaningful enough to do this over.
Yeah,
but I had to learn that lesson some way, and that's how I learned it. And the other aspect was like, I think that was a particularly charged interaction because he knew that I came from money. And I do think that if I were dishonest about it, or if people didn't know, or if he thought that, I was like broke and that $200 really did matter to me, I think he would have taken what I was doing very differently.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I was going to say, which is sort of interesting. Like, I would never confront a comedy. I assume that they're all shorting me. I just like go in with that assumption, and then I just don't audit because I'm just like, I just know that like you're just gonna give me whatever. And if I, especially like as a woman, I feel like if I'm like, hey, actually, like I just feel like it's always taken it just sounds like, oh, I'm being difficult, I'm hard to work with. At this point in my career, I'm just like, I'm just like biding my time until like I'm at the point where my reps just handle all of that for me, and then they can be the bad guys. Like, I'm just not going to put my face behind that conversation.
I think that's the right call. I think it's a fine line because sometimes you have to advocate for yourself.
Right.
But I do think as I look back, it's like my goal in this career is not to make thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars. It's to be very successful, and it's to be successful on a level where those numbers don't really matter.
Right.
And so to like squabble over them now, when where I'm trying to go is so much bigger, it's like if I'm squabbling over $200 in 10 years from now, that means I'm failing at this career. So in that sense, in a long game perspective, I agree.
But also, yeah, I mean, it is important to set a precedent of like, well, you can't take advantage of me.
Yeah.
Because like if they feel like they can, then they will. Like,
also,
you do have to advocate for yourself. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and like at this time, we booked a whole tour ourselves and we negotiated everything. And even though the money didn't matter as much to me, it did matter a lot to Jamie, who I was on tour with.
Because you guys were co-headlining at that point?
Yeah, we were splitting an hour.
Yeah.
Actually, in this particular instance, we weren't. It was me alone. It was my first solo date, and I fucked it up. But I had been used to like sort of advocating for myself and Jamie, and those numbers did matter to Jamie. So part of me felt like somewhat of a responsibility to Jamie to be like the guy, because I knew Jamie was not that guy to squabble over a check. But I was like, he cares about that money.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Anyway.
Well, okay, so let's actually back up for a second. So first of all, congrats on the Cellar.
Oh, thank you.
That's like such an amazing accomplishment.
It's been cool.
I want to hear about that, but first I want to go back like a little further. So you went to Williams and you didn't do comedy when you were there.
No.
And then when did you decide you wanted to be a stand-up?
I was like, it's interesting because I was at a show in Charleston on this tour, and my old teacher came, and she brought my yearbook from 8th grade.
Oh my God.
And it said, what is, it had like the superlatives.
Yeah.
And it was like, what is Lucas going to be doing 15 years from now?
Yeah.
And it said on tour doing stand-up comedy. And it was exactly 15 years from them. And she was on tour. I think that's why she brought it. Because she was
like, look at
She was
this.
like, this is crazy.
That is crazy. That never happened.
So it was like always my experience of the world that I was like always the class clown, the disruptive one in class. Like funny was always how I connected with people. So that there was
Do you have a problem with authority? Like, do you push back on that?
Honestly, no, I'm a bit of a rule follower.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I would say like because both of my siblings were not rule followers in their own ways. I mean, my sister has special needs, so she didn't really understand the rules that she had to follow. And my brother was an addict.
She's such a badass.
She's such a badass. Her intellect doesn't quite allow her to hold rules within her mind. So she wasn't a rule follower, and then my older brother was an addict, and he wasn't a rule follower. So I took it upon myself to be the peacemaker.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm like actually quite, even though water under the bridge, but the beginning of our relationship might have been conflict heavy. I'm mostly conflict averse as a person. Like I don't like that.
Okay.
I don't
just
know
when
why
it comes to me,
I picked that day to be
to
like
just be a
to lean
bitch.
in. Yeah, I picked that day to lean in, but like usually I'm pretty like anti that.
Yeah, I could tell. It felt like it was the kind of comment that I was like, I don't think this is about me. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but
no.
It felt a little charged.
But it's kind of what I said about me having money and I feeling like I've laid out this whole path for myself that I feel strongly about this one topic.
Right.
It's like it's a topic I feel strongly about, and it seems to be maybe a topic that feels a little bit charged for you in a way too, and maybe those two things met at the same time, or you don't think it's charged for you at all?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think like my value system is like my family is super into like work ethic and like money doesn't. I don't know how to explain the relationship with money exactly, but it just doesn't. I grew up thinking that I was like poor, which is such a stupid thing to say, and it's gonna sound out of touch, sort of, no matter how I like. But it was because the community I grew up in was so affluent that like my dad and being a lawyer and my mom working, and like so successful. My mom's a commercial real estate broker. Like she's very successful. I really admire like the way she's worked her entire life. And anyway, but those two jobs on their own, they're like very like 1%y jobs.
Yeah.
But like in my high school class, I was like so embarrassed because my parents wouldn't buy me like the new pants from LF. Like I had to buy my own clothes because my parents were like.
So it was like instilled upon you.
That, like that you don't like spend frivolously and like you work really hard. It's like, I was a straight A student. Like I just didn't even have like a conception of like.
So it's charged for you and it's charged for me. And I think therein created the concept.
Yeah. And my parents were like super, like they helped me through senior year of college, which some people don't get. Some people don't get that. So it was amazing. And they made sure to like save, and like I had a great education. They paid for it. Unbelievably lucky. But then after that, it was like, all right.
Go do your own thing.
Go do your own thing.
Yeah.
And like everything I did after that was completely on my own.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, so then I don't know. So it just kind of gives it does when people assume, because this is the thing too that I think is really unfair that some people in the community like assume about other people. It's all like, I mean, whatever. But just because, and this is, again, going to sound like an asshole thing to say. And like you were saying, it's like having a safety net doesn't necessarily mean like financially either. It's just like a room to stay in kind of thing. And I definitely have that.
Yeah.
But like, you don't know what people's relationships with their families are, and you don't know what their families give them.
Yeah.
So even if you think you know, you still don't know.
Yeah.
So I just think that the assumption is like a tough starting point. So whatever. But
there's levels to all of it. And like sometimes I speak to people that come from comfortable backgrounds like they come from my background, which is not true because I just have a more open line to help if I wanted it. And though I don't always take it now, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Everyone has their own lines of what you take and what kind of help there is. Part of the help that like you and I have, for example, is like I do think that we are both achieving a certain degree of success in comedy because we come off in a way that is atypical and modern for comedy. Because comedy for so long was like dirt bags and people that were like, I'm fat, ugly, and poor, and I'm this and that. And we both approach it. We more read as like a Jewish kid you might have gone to camp with.
Yeah.
And that has not always been a voice in comedy. It has in certain ways, like Nick Kroll was kind of that, and John Mulaney is kind of that,
Right.
even though he's not Jewish. But like, you know, that vibe, he comes off with that sort of like educated, well-spoken, affluent, higher brow vibe.
Mhm.
But there's a space for that on the internet that I think both of us have carved into a little bit. And I would say you and I have somewhat amount of overlap. Like people who know who I am sometimes know who you are, probably vice versa.
Yeah, totally.
Like if I'm doing your show, I'm like, it's likely to me that someone in your crowd knows has seen my comedy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's even in its way like a different kind of benefit is like you go to Vassar, you come off as this like liberal arts person,
Right.
and that will help you connect with those kinds of people who don't always see a voice like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
But wait, what was the fucking, how did we get
How
here?
did you get into stand-up?
Oh yeah. Right. So I was always like, that was always like but everyone was like, you should do stand-up.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm smart. I'll be a business person. Because everyone growing up in New York City,
That was, yeah.
everyone's dad was like some CEO.
Yes.
And I was like, I want to
in
be
your
that, and I
community,
want to be valued by these people. I wanted
Right.
to be like, so I was like, okay, I could be like a business person. And then as I went through college, I sort of, even though I loved the people I met there, I was like, I want to do something that is not like this, and I want to do something untraditional. So then I thought it was working in entertainment. Then I started working in entertainment, and I was like, everyone thinks I'm like the finance guy in entertainment. And that was no fun to me.
What were you doing?
First, I was an assistant,
Yeah.
but I was an assistant for a guy who was on the like more businessy side at a
Okay.
production company.
Yeah.
And then I worked in corporate strategy at Viacom, which was a financy role.
Right.
And I was like, this doesn't feel like entertainment. This just feels like finance at a company that makes entertainment, which is exactly what it was.
Right.
So then I was like, maybe I want to try. My parents had sat me down when I was like 16 and told me to be a comedian and an actor. They were like, we think this would be your path.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so unique.
You know what? I had a lot of fears. I pride myself on self-awareness, but there's something fundamentally not self-aware about being bad at comedy. And you have to be bad at comedy to get good at comedy.
Yes.
And so I think what was really scary for me is I would sometimes like try to dip a toe. Maybe I'd like make a video on my own in a closed room, and I'd watch it and be like, oh, this is so bad.
Right.
Because I had good taste and I had a good sense of how funny I could be, but I was just bad at it because I was trying it for the first time. And that was like, I couldn't bear to be that. And then the idea of like, even as I was going through college and after college, the idea of being like, my dad said to me when I graduated, he said, I will financially support you entirely if you want to give this 2 years full time.
Really?
I turned that down because the idea of being literally paid a salary by my rich daddy to be bad at comedy was awful to me. So I made a deal with myself that I wouldn't do comedy full time until I could afford to pay all the costs of my life off of comedy.
Yes.
But to be clear, the offer was on the table
Wow.
to start at open mics and just have my life paid for and just have him be like, give it 2 years and see what happens. But I didn't do that. I was working and then I was doing stand up at night because I was just like, ugh, it's like the only thing more embarrassing than open micing is getting paid a salary by your dad to be an
to
open
just
micer.
open mic. I
Yeah.
also think honestly that would hurt your comedy
Totally.
because I think you made the totally right call for like your success. I think if you aren't talking about your life
Yeah.
and like aren't interacting with people who are like you, like that's just the most out of touch.
You also need to ramp it up. Like when you start comedy, it shouldn't be a full-time gig at first because
Yeah.
you don't know how to work it. You don't know like where to work and how to work.
Right.
You don't know how to write a joke. So you could sit down for 6 hours. Sometimes like you hear new comedians and they're like, I write for 5 hours a day. And I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's also not gonna help you. I don't
Yeah.
write at all.
Right.
I talk.
Right.
I talk to friends. If I'm stuck and I need a new bit
Yeah.
and I'm like, ugh, I'm tired of my material, whatever, I literally go hang out with my friends.
Yeah.
I pick my funniest friends and I just go do something.
And
Or
you
I
had to
have, like-
find that process probably.
Yes, totally.
And like I've found, I used to sit and write every morning for an hour just to like will into myself a way to structurally write jokes. And now my
Right.
process is like notes app, usually 3 a.m. or 8 a.m. Like
Yeah.
it's
when I'm
those
falling
late-
asleep,
yeah,
I
right
come
when
up
I'm
with
falling
every
asleep.
idea I've ever
exactly.
had.
So, but You're not. So I started doing it part-time. I did the full UCB curriculum, all intensive.
Oh.
So I did 101 through 401 in like 6 weeks.
Sketch or improv?
Improv.
Oh.
And I was like, I don't like this because I just felt gay in a derogatory way. And and like gay, like the worst version of what being gay is in your mind. That's what I felt. And which by the way, in my mind, it's great. So I was just using that as a helpful word to tell you, the listeners. But and then I was like, that doesn't work. And then I took like a few months off, but I missed it. And I was like, there's something that felt right about this, but it wasn't this.
Yeah.
So I did I was really constipated. When I started working at a desk, I stopped being able to shit, and it got really bad.
Okay.
It got like really bad. At one point I had to do an enema, it got like really bad. Like I couldn't shit sometimes for 2 or 3 weeks on end. It was awful. And so I started doing this thing that if I could scare myself, I could shit. So I'm scared of heights. So I got into the algorithm of watching Russian people who walk on the edges of buildings.
Yeah.
And for a time that scared me enough to shit. And then that wasn't scaring me enough to shit. And I'd already had this like desire to do comedy. And the only reason why I never did stand-up comedy is it literally scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, it's the scariest thing ever.
When I signed up for that class, immediately I got this bowel relief. Like I got to shit. And I was
this is the craziest
I
way
know.
I've ever
I was also interested in it, to be clear, but it was helping me go to the bathroom.
Okay.
And so I went to this class. I said, I think the first assignment for the class was like, don't try to do stand-up, just tell us about your day. And if you find a way to make it funny organically, do so.
Wait, this was at UCB also?
No, this was Laughing Buddha.
Dude, also hilarious that you took a class.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, listeners at home, do not do that.
Don't do it. It's usually predatory.
Yeah,
but
it's a waste of money. I mean, if you really need a safety net, if you need the structure, I guess you can use it. But just so you know, you literally don't need it. Just go to an open mic.
Yes, go to an open mic. Watch an open mic. Even if you really want something that will motivate you, nothing is more motivating than watching an open mic. You will watch an open mic and go, I can do this.
That's what I did. I literally went to an open mic and I went, okay, well, I can be as bad as these people. Yeah. And then I did
Go be an audience member in an open mic. Don't tell anyone you're a comedian. They'll be thrilled there's an audience member there.
Right.
Watch them, realize how bad they are, and you next time you go will be willing to get up there.
Yeah. And then start making friends and ask them where the good mics are.
Yeah. But I did do a class, and the class was full of insane people. Some people who weren't homeless, but certainly
that was the vibe.
The vibe was like the class doubled as an opportunity for them to be in shelter for a few hours.
Oh, cool.
You know what I mean?
Great.
Like people whose possessions were carried in bags and carts. You know what I mean?
Like to the mic?
Yeah, to this class. It was not free, so it was shocking to me that would be the case.
Right.
But I still remember one guy where I was like, I don't know how you have any money, but you don't seem like you have a job or any kind of sanity or balance or people in your life.
Okay.
So the class was like full of insane people. So when I got up and spoke, I was like by far the most normal.
Yeah.
And the teacher, who actually is a comedian who I was with the other night at the Cellar, saw me and pulled me aside after just talking one time and was like, hey, all these other fuckers in this class are insane people. He's like, I actually think you could probably do this for a living. He was
a living.
He was like, you could probably do this. He's like, I don't know if you want to do this, if you're serious about this, but I think if you do want to do this, you could do this. And he took me, I went to a cigar lounge with him and Aaron Berg. The teacher's name is Kevin Dombrowski. And he just got in at the Cellar too. So I was with him at the Cellar and we had cigars together.
With Aaron Berg?
With Aaron Berg and Kevin Dombrowski.
That's crazy.
These are like jacked, old, bald guys who like all love to them, but we don't do comedy very similarly.
Yeah, they're very like, how would you, like roasty? No, I don't know, like aggro?
Yeah, and just
super
more
funny.
like traditional.
Yes, old school.
Yeah,
old school.
yeah, like what you would think comedy would be in like a movie about comedy. versus like
vicious crowd work.
Yeah,
you fucking whore. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll do
and
great.
I say that with love, like they're killers. Kill.
But not, I approach it with a much different sensibility.
You're like, my daddy gave me a trust fund.
Yes. So very different.
And he's like, my wife's huge tits. Like, it's just different.
Exactly. And he took me there, and that was like the step one. And then I just had such great fear for it that for a long time I would do it only very occasionally. And then in September of 2019, it had begun to torture me because I was like, I really have to like shit or get off the pot with this.
Right.
Because it was something like...
Shitting's a huge part of this for you.
Shitting is yes.
Shitting is actually most of this whole thing
It's
for you.
really, it has I live my life in shit metaphors and or literal shitting.
Okay.
But I kept like signing up for bringer shows because I had all these people in New York. Bringer shows are when they'll put you on stage as long as you bring people.
5 people.
But that was so easy for me because I was from New York City and everyone was like, oh, Lucas is trying stand-up? Sure, we'll go see it.
Right.
And so I'd sign up for these bringer shows and then you'd know like a month in advance that you had a show, but I wouldn't do anything in between. So I would just fear this day. And finally I was like, fuck it. Like I gotta either do this or not do this, but I can't just keep like doing this once a month as a party trick for 5 friends who watch me bomb.
Right.
So I was on vacation September 2019 and I was like, why don't I just put my head down? I'll do open mics every day for 6 months. And then I'm not going to think about whether I like it. And then at 6 months exactly, I'll pick my head up and I'll say, do I want to do this or not?
Yeah.
So I did that. That was September. That led me to March 2020, which was COVID.
Right.
So as I picked my head up, I was like, I do want to do this. And then it was like, boom, COVID hit.
And now it's done.
And so it was done. I started writing scripts with Jamie.
Okay.
And Jamie
And you
Wolf.
met Jamie in college?
I met Jamie at open mics. Jamie Wolf is a very funny comedian, a mutual friend of Yvette and mine. And he is 2 years deeper into comedy than I am. So when I was going to open mics, he was like the best guy at the open mics. He's also a very good comedian anyway. Yeah. But at this time, he was like a god among the open micers. Because he'd get up and he was actually funny. And we had never seen that before. Right. Like we had never seen someone that even approached being funny. And he was like legitimately funny. Yeah. And he was not nervous. I was like full of fear and not myself. And he was himself up there. And I was like, I must befriend this guy. Yeah. He was like my boy crush. Aww. So I like, I realized later is like a lot of open micers boy crush, but I was able to court him successfully. And
that's beautiful.
I asked him to do a show with me. He agreed. And he was sort of the person that motivated me to try and become a comedian. And so then when the pandemic hit, I called him. I still wasn't quite friends with him, but I knew we had this show together and we'd worked together, and I thought he might like me, but I couldn't tell. I was like always very insecure around him because you know how he is.
He's slow to warm up, to be fair. I had known him for a long time before.
And hard to read.
And hard to read, and like deliberately so. Like I remember one time, like we were hanging out pretty consistently, and then he like hugged me goodbye one time and he was like, love you. And I was like, really?
yeah, totally. And so I was like, would you ever want to write a script with me? And he was like, sure. And I was like, oh, the king.
You're like, wait,
the king of the open mics wants to write with me.
Oh my God,
so we started writing together, and then that's how we wrote together throughout the pandemic. And then we accidentally founded a comedy club together. But the reason why we even had our own space originally was to use as a place to write together. Because we really had like, almost got a breakthrough with a script. It got sent to Netflix through a production company that found it very early on, like before we had any kind of credits at all. We wrote one good pilot.
Were you like on socials yet, or
nope?
No. Wow.
No, just completely. Just a guy came to see us do comedy and was like, "Do you have any writing samples?" Read it. He's now a movie agent at WME, but at the time he was a producer at Sony, and he took it to Robert De Niro's production company, Tribeca Productions, and they were like, we want to make this with Netflix through our overall.
Whoa.
And it was very shocking. Like we were like,
yeah,
what?
You're like, this is my big break. What the fuck?
And that's how you feel about it at the time. Like if it were now, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's another one of these dead end meetings. But at the time I was like, oh my God, we're gonna have a Netflix show.
Right.
And so when that got in the works, why did I say
Did they buy it?
No, they just passed on it immediately.
Just eventually were like, no.
Not even eventually. It was like 3 days
now.
later. It was like they flew. Jamie was in Houston doing shows. He flew back from Houston because Tribeca was like, we want we want to make a few changes and then it's going straight to Netflix. So we flew back. We had this meeting in person with Tribeca Productions. We like slammed on these changes on the script, sent it to Netflix, and Netflix was like, we don't like this. Why would we make this? Who are these guys? No. Oh, no. But, and that was like sort of my first taste of the industry.
Yeah.
But
you know what? I think people focus on the negative in those things where it's like, oh yeah, they got turned down, whatever. I feel like someone saw something in you, someone liked you, and that was your first thing. It was never gonna.
It was pretty encouraging.
It's encouraging.
And we didn't, at the time that happened, like now it's such a different world because I would imagine that when you were eyeing becoming a professional in comedy, the obvious path was social growth. Would that be correct?
I would say my first year, people were still waffling on it.
Yeah.
You had already been posting at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, open mic scene, and even comics that were at the clubs, and I would be hanging at the clubs and they'd be like saying like, yeah, well, fuck social media. It's not, come on, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And but then they would on the other, talking to both sides of their mouth, then be like, well, but like Jamie and Lucas, like we love Jamie and Lucas. Look at, they're killing it. So then I just kind of had to put it together on my own where I was like, well, clearly that's the way. I mean, whether people admit it to themselves or not.
But when I started, it wasn't even like, the path would have been like, oh yeah, Netflix will find a script that you wrote. That was like our understanding. Because social didn't really
exist. Yeah. So
it did, like Ashley Gavin was doing it.
Right, right.
But everyone was like, it wasn't even like, there weren't even negative stereotypes about it. There were just no stereotypes about it.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like people were like, they weren't quite talking about it yet.
Right.
But what we accidentally founded this comedy club through writing scripts together.
Right.
And we wanted our own space to do it. And then we were like, we could probably pay the rent on the space by running shows.
Oh.
And because it was the summer after COVID, it was so cheap to get a retail space.
Mm.
And then because my cousin was doing a startup in the alcohol space, we were like, could you pay the rent on our space and we will brand the space with your alcohol company's name. And so they paid the rent. So we had this free space for the summer.
Really?
And that's how it started. Yeah.
And Sesh is the alcohol?
Sesh was the alcohol. They've since shuttered the alcohol brand, and the comedy club has lived on.
Has lived on and grown. And now it's like
and Sesh was like kind of a good name for a comedy club because it didn't really mean anything anyway. It was like kind of a bad name for an alcohol brand, but like not a bad name for a comedy show. It was like, sure, a session.
Yeah, well, Sesh is like smoke sesh.
Sometimes, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
But it's also like generally vague. Like smoke sesh is, I would say, the most common.
Right.
So we were like, sure, we'll call it Sesh. I don't give a fuck. Like,
right.
And so we called it that. And then, yeah, we just started producing shows and it just like totally became a comedy club.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you started doing the shows, how did you... So your model then was you let everyone do a show there for free if they wanted to produce a show, but you and Jamie had to be booked on it.
Yeah. When we started the comedy club, it was right in that vaccine summer. So it was summer 2021.
Right.
The vaccine had come out and like it was that first moment where everyone was like, this is totally over. And that was actually not true because then there was like the Omicron variant and like shit like reclosed down that winter.
Yes.
But it was everyone, that beautiful summer where everyone was like, we can go outside again.
And like so
horny.
Fiending to be together.
And just do anything.
That was my first summer doing comedy. Like I got vaccinated and then I just started doing comedy. And I went to Sesh and I met you. You guys were like the first people I met in stand-up.
Yeah.
It was like in passing.
And I didn't even really know anyone. Like sets at that time, I think we were doing 10-minute sets there. And I only did 5 because I didn't have 10 minutes. And so I was like, I was like, no fucking way I'm doing 10 minutes. I was like, 10 minutes is an eternity. So we started, but we had run a show together and we knew that if you just paid comics like $20 to $30 for a show, you could make a lot of money producing a show because you got the rest of the money. And it was like, and so we were like, you know, even though it's an unfair deal to comics, it was kind of like, if you take on the onus of figuring out how to make a good show, comics will come and they'll come for free, really.
Right.
And,
well, because the thing with comedy is that your currency is stage time until you're a headliner.
Exactly.
That's just kind of what it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice that people pay you like $20 here and there, but like genuinely, like, I mean, we would all do it for free. And the
Yeah.
reason is because the stage time is priceless.
Exactly.
Like, that's what you need to get better.
Exactly. But then it is also true that there is someone holding the bag at the end of that, making the money. And that's like, you could view it as predatory, but at the time we didn't even view it any sort of way. We were just like, we were trying to cover the portion of the rent that Sesh, the company, hadn't paid for us. It wasn't 100%.
Right.
And Jamie like renovated that space by hand.
Really?
Yeah, like he painted it. I was gonna say I didn't do shit. I don't know how to do stuff like that. But there were all these issues with it. There was like a problem with flies. We got all these fly traps. It was like it was like a daily thing. But that summer, the deal was we got to perform on every single show.
Right.
And if you wanted to produce a show with us, you could have all the money from your show.
Right.
But we got to perform if we wanted to.
Which is an unbelievable, unheard of deal for a comedian. Like usually there's like a 70-30 door split or whatever.
So we started opening the place, I would say 6 to 7 nights a week, 1 to 2 shows a night. So I would have as many as 14 shows a week pre-booked if I didn't reach out to anyone to do a show.
Right.
Which is like kind of what I do now. Like it's like a professional level comedian amount of stage time to be offered.
Unheard of. I don't have that now.
Yeah. Like if you wanted to have that now, you'd probably have to hit up a ton of people all the time.
All the
like,
time.
If I don't reach out to people, I don't really get 14 a week. Like if I just let people hit me up and offer me things, like I maybe get 10 a week organically. I don't know. But like it's hard to get that many spots.
Yeah.
And we had that. And so I got to work so much. And I also got to experience what it was like to be a professional comedian. Because I was like, you do this every night. This is the only thing you do. And once I did all that, I was like, oh, one, I know I can do this. It was like 3 months of that. I was like, I know I can do this like mentally and psychologically and emotionally, that I enjoy this. And second, I started to see myself grow. And I was like, I think I can be good at this. Like I think I see a path for this. And so at the end of that summer, I called my parents. I still had to go back to Stanford. I was getting my MBA from Stanford.
Okay.
So that was in between year 1 and year 2 of Stanford.
Right.
So I called my parents and I was like, I will finish business school.
Okay.
But when I graduate, I'd like to be a professional comedian and I would like to use this second year at Stanford to figure out how to do that.
Cool.
And they had seen us make a bunch of money on this comedy club accidentally. Right. And they were like, well, fuck it. I mean, at the very least, we were each tracking to make 6-figure salaries off that comedy club. And then they were like, at the very least, I mean, if that's how you want to make your money, like, we're like, sure, we support it.
Wow. I didn't realize that that's how much money you were making.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
It was
That's also
crazy.
Genuinely unheard of. And also, you guys managed to toe that line very well of like, you were the club owners, but you were comedians. Like, it didn't really feel like that.
That was the sort of like worry in our heads was that, sorry, can you give me 1 second?
Yeah.
Just in case this is important or time sensitive. I'm sorry, this is not who they got the Pentagon. That was Donald Trump. The country's under attack. We cannot leave this podcast.
We're safe inside.
No, that was involving a thing having to do with money in my family.
Oh, perfect. Great.
But where were we? Sesh? Oh yeah, I was nervous that we'd be considered to be show producers, and I think some people considered us that way, but we did get to meet a lot of people that summer. One thing Jamie did is Jamie booked all the shows, and he refused to book our friends who sucked. He only booked people that were actually good, so the shows were great. We were the worst 2 people on every show, and that was the goal.
Right.
He didn't do any favors, really.
Wow.
And as a result, we met the older class, which that's a so-so move because you really should have a class of people you're coming up with and you should be doing them favors. But from a business perspective, it was very smart because the club really excelled because it was professional.
Yeah.
It was like the youngest people who were just at the Comedy Cellar would come to our room and they really connected and we were just offering like a pretty good experience. And as a result, it sold out all the time.
Right.
And then we got great stage time. You know?
Right. And still, like, so now I'm doing my show at Sesh, like the new Sesh big room, which like Sesh is truly like both rooms are phenomenal for comedy.
Yeah. Yeah, they're great. We sold it to a guy named Dave Hogsett after that summer because I was going back to Stanford. And also we were just, we weren't prepared to be venue owners forever. Right. It was like really hard.
Yeah.
And Dave bought it. Dave did a great job with it. People are like, why didn't you just hire Dave? Why'd you sell it to him? And I was like, you only say that now because it's been successful for 4 more years after this. But I was like, at
Right.
the time it was 3 months old. We had no confidence
In
that,
how it was
that we
gonna-
could have salary an employee and not lose a ton of money off
Right.
of like an employee salary. So
And also, that's not what you were going for.
Yeah, exactly.
Long term. Yeah,
that too.
it's a whole other.
But
thing.
he did a great job with it, and yeah, it still exists. It's like I would say a pretty like highly regarded
Definitely.
comedy room in
Definitely.
Manhattan. Yeah.
Which is kind of like hilarious that you guys accidentally founded one of the
Yeah, like one
best
of the
rooms in New
one
York.
of the better clubs.
Like
yeah.
really one of the better clubs.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So wait, were you doing stand up when you were at Stanford?
My second year, first year was
Yeah.
COVID, so it was like no shows, and then my
Right.
second year, every day, I
Oh,
would
okay.
I would drive to San Francisco after class.
Really?
So I did spots every night of the week.
What was the scene like in San Francisco?
Not a lot of good comics, and well,
Tell
everyone
us
that
how you
gets
really
good
feel.
moves to LA or New York, pretty much.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of young people who are promising. Like good comics left that scene. I mean, like Joey Avery, Dowd Neymar, Andrew Rolfo. A lot of them moved to LA, so they're not
Yeah.
like as integrated with the New York scene. James Mora, Sereni Weir-Sacra.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But at the time, it was a little bit empty. Like there was a recent exodus to LA of like the top dogs at that time. So I got out there and I started working a room that was much like Sesh called Cheaper Than Therapy. And I was like, I'll help you produce your Wednesday show. They didn't have a Wednesday show. I was like, I'll make a Wednesday show and I'll help get people out
Yeah.
if you just let me do whatever I want on the Wednesday show. And that's when I started doing clips that whole year.
Oh.
So from the time
you
that I
didn't have, but you posted some of your Sesh stuff online, no?
Yeah, because at the end of the summer,
Yeah.
we filmed a 30-minute special, which, to be clear, I mean, you've never seen someone this bad at comedy try to do 30 minutes. It was horrifying. But that was when I learned to do crowd work.
Really?
And I learned to do crowd work for the reason that you might think, which is that I was bad at writing jokes and I was good at crowd work. And I did a ton of crowd work in those 30-minute sets. It all got filmed. We were given all that footage. And then I went to Stanford and I was sitting on all this footage. And then in San Francisco, I started getting longer sets because it was just more the norm than New York to give people like 15, 20 minutes. And I would do a lot of crowd work because I didn't have very many jokes. And I would film all that and I started posting frequently. And it was early, so it was easier to get followers and it was easier to break through.
That was like the heyday of like stand-up clips too,
Yeah.
because that was before anyone had seen crowd work online. And now it's like, oh, well, that's what everybody does. But like you were at the forefront of that.
Yeah, so and then that was because of Ashley Gavin. She told me to do that
Really?
because she was doing that and succeeding. And she was like, you got to do it. You got to do it. So I started a TikTok account in like the fall of my second year at Stanford. And then by the time I graduated Stanford, I don't know what I had, maybe like 100,000 followers, but enough. Especially back then, it was like there weren't a lot of comedians doing it and there weren't a lot of people asking you to come to shows. So like 100,000 followers today on TikTok might not get you anyone out at a show.
Yeah.
But back then, or it might, I don't know. It depends, I think, how people connect with you. But but back then, I was able to sell tickets like pretty much right away.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I graduated Stanford, I did like an independent study, which was about modeling how I could make the stand-up career happen for myself.
That's
and
a hilarious way to use your Stanford
I started
degree.
modeling each market, how many tickets I thought I could sell with Jamie, and then what the cost of renting a venue would be, and then what the cost of travel would be. And we like built this financial model that said we could earn like at least, I think it was like $75,000 each net from doing a stand-up tour in the fall. And we were like, okay, great. And we went out and did it and did better than we thought. And
Wow.
that was like the start. Yeah.
So that's like a big leap though, to like go on the road. Were you like scared to do that at all? Were you just like, I'm going to...
By the end of Stanford, I'd gotten a little more comfortable with longer sets because I had gotten better at comedy at that point. And I would say I was probably regarded as one of the stronger comics in San Francisco. So people started offering me longer sets.
Cool.
It was very like local scene in that, you know, in the city of San Francisco, you would do like a 10-minute set. But if you wanted to drive to the suburbs, either like south to Santa Cruz or north up to like Marin or Sonoma County, you could do like 30, 35 minutes. So I started being offered these like local headlining gigs where you'd like headline a brewery for like $200 or something.
Yeah.
And also Ashley Gavin let me start featuring, and those were 20-minute sets.
Huge.
So when it came to doing 30 minutes of Jamie and me splitting an hour, I was like, I think I could do that. And it wasn't great, but it wasn't like mortifyingly scary. I thought between doing crowd work and between doing jokes, I felt like maybe I had 15, 20 minutes of jokes that I thought were strong enough that I felt confident telling them. And then I was like, I could fill the rest in with like riffs and crowd work and jokes that were bad.
Right.
And so, no, it wasn't like, it was actually, as the venue started to grow, I started to get more scared and I started to have panic attacks on stage.
Really?
Yeah. That was throughout the first tour. I guess I left that out of my memory, but now that I say that, I do remember. Yeah. Yes, I was having panic attacks.
No, it was like fun. I was confident. I was having panic attacks
I was
on
having
stage.
panic attacks while doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah, like sort of blacking out, falling to the ground.
I did
shitting
freeze. No, I wish I had been shitting my pants, but I did freeze on stage in Austin at Cap City. It was like our first time performing for 300 people. And I got on, and in the first 30 seconds, I forgot the entire act. And I was looking, and it was sort of like one of those scenes where like your ears are ringing and you just see these like expectant faces looking at you.
Yeah, and they're like, is this part of it?
Yeah, and I froze. I looked at the video. I must have frozen for like 10 seconds. Like
but
it was,
feels like a lifetime.
Yeah, it was like nothing.
Sometimes I take a breath and I'm like, oh my God, they know.
Yeah.
Like, they can see the inside of my brain.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So
wait, that's crazy. And then it just came back to you?
No, for a moment. I think for about 5 minutes, I was like, I'll probably have to walk off. But I was able to do the jokes. I was like, I felt such great anxiety up there that I was like, I don't see how I could physically sustain feeling this way for 30 minutes.
Right.
But I think then, I forget when, at some point in the set, someone heckled me, and that really brought me back into my body. Like I was really present because I had to like respond to it, and I had to actually think and not recite. So I had to like think about what I was going to say. And then I was just a guy talking. And that was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Which was why crowd work used to help me a lot.
Because it would, because
I would help me feel like I was actually there instead of like just saying things that I was supposed to remember.
Right.
Because the idea of like, if you look at stand-up as a script that you're reciting, it becomes very scary because you're like, what if I forget the script?
Yeah, I have to remember everything.
How do I remember an hour of words? But if you look at it as more things you're telling people that you know, like a conversation, then it's a lot less daunting, you know?
Right. Which is how to do the best also.
Yeah, totally.
It's just like,
you'll have the best like way about you up there.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes I slip into like the reciting a little bit, like for seconds here and there, because it's just, it's hard to like stay present sometimes. Yeah. And like if you're tired, if you ate something weird that day, like it's just like there's so many.
Or you're sick of the joke.
Yeah, you're sick of the joke, or you've told it too many times too recently, and then blah, blah, blah.
Totally.
Yeah. There's so many things that can go wrong or feel that way. But that's a really... That is like my biggest fear is like blanking.
Yeah, it was for me too. And I also was especially afraid of room size. So like as I moved up, I was really afraid of room size. Like as I got an opportunity this fall to do a 2,000 seat theater for a college. And even as late as this fall, when I'd been, headlining now for like 2 years and doing hours, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to
do that.
Yeah, but then you just have to do it.
Is there like a trick that you play in your brain to try and...
No. My first time headlining, I headlined... The college was a little less scary because the tickets are free for the students. So it's like a little less pressure because you're like, you're not even fans of mine. You didn't pay. You didn't travel to be here. You're just kind of seeing a thing that if it sucks, it's no harm, no foul. And I think that helped ease my mind. But then in Toronto in January, I did my first 1,000 seat theater where people were paying, and the front row paid, I think, like over $100 for a ticket. Yeah. And I'm on the same stage as like Sarah Silverman and, like all these greats that have done it before. And, Shane Gillis did this theater like 2 or a year and a half ago.
That's crazy.
And so that was like, I don't know what the trick was. I just was very nervous, and it's more like, it's just a reminder that like you will be able to do the job.
Yeah.
Same with the Comedy Cellar. I'm from New York. So like the sign, every time I would watch like Jamie go up there, or any of my friends go up there in the last year since my friends have been starting to get in there more, I'm like, how do they not freak the fuck out up there?
Yeah.
And the answer is just like, I don't know. You just kind of have to say it, and then do it again until it starts to feel more normal.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is that like when I've had to do these like big time shows or like freaky like high pressure environments, it's like you have to remember that your body will just do it. Like Jesus kind of takes the wheel.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't make any sense. And then something that I also remind myself of is like everyone does this.
Yeah.
Everyone that I know has done this. People do this, so you can do this.
Right. And for me, it's like usually the first time I do a bad job. Like that is pretty, to me at least. It's like if I am really nervous, I will do a somewhat bad job. But it's just like making peace with that aspect of it too.
Right.
Where it's like, I was really nervous in Toronto. I think it was a good enough show. It was not my best performance because I was nervous because it was my first time performing for over 1,000 people that came to see me in one room. And that was scary. And it's like, it would be insane not to just be honest with yourself about that. It's like, that's a skill. Comedy clubs are a skill. Small rooms are a skill. Big rooms are a skill.
Right. And
There's different
skills.
They're different. You know, you got to figure out how to pause. You have to figure out how to command a bigger stage. And now like this year I'll do, I don't know how many, 9 over 1,000 seat theaters, I think, on the next tour.
Holy shit.
But that will just be, I'm sure by the 9th I'll be good at it.
Right.
I'm sure on the 1st I'll be bad. And that's just kind of part of it.
Right. But also I will say, like, I don't want you to like sell yourself too short, because I think that the degrees in which like the variation to you probably feels huge because you know what it can be.
Right.
But when you're an audience member, and sometimes I even like watch videos back of myself and I'm like, oh, I didn't do that well, or I didn't feel that great when I was doing it. And it's like literally
it's like not the
good.
most noticeable difference. It's like
not.
Good enough. Yeah.
And it's like you're still communicating the thing you were trying to communicate.
Right.
So,
You're saying the words that you'd say to someone else. And right. So it's like, you know how alive it can feel when you're in that great headspace. But yeah, the impact on them is probably somewhat minimal.
Yeah. And something that I will say too, just to like, you know, bolster you a little bit, I really like, because we met, you know, at the beginning. So I've seen you like throughout sort of the past few years when you've been like on this crazy like incline, which is so exciting as like a friend and admirer of comedy. Like it's really,
thank you.
But like you did my show this week and I literally was just like, wow, like you're just so good.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice.
Yeah, like it's not always you get to like really sit and like watch your friends perform, you know?
Yeah.
So I felt like really glad that I could do that, and like the room was really good, and like it was just really cool. It was just really cool to see you just like really kill and just be so like graceful and good up there. It was just great.
Oh, thank you.
So.
The Cellar has been the first time where I was like, oh, I'm starting to get good at this, and that felt really good.
Yeah, I could literally tell.
Yeah.
It was like when you did that on my show, literally I was like, that's why he's at the Cellar. I was like, oh, and I get it. Wait, so that's my next question. So I wanted to hear about like how you decided to like go for the Cellar, what that process was like.
Yeah, the advice I got was it was don't try to go for the Cellar until it's your friends who are around the table. That was like the advice that I got, because there was definitely a long time where everyone who was at the Cellar, I would have confidently said that's the class above me. Like it was like Caitlin Palufo and Matthew Broussard and Jordan Jensen and Mike Rowland and Ethan Simmons Patterson, and these are all like comics that I didn't start with when I started to like get places in comedy. I always knew them as they were already established, and so that was the crew. And then in the last like 2 years, there have been people that are more like my age or stage, which is like Jamie got in, our friend Casey Shornima got in, Maddie Weiner got in, Emil Wakim got in, Tommy Brennan got in. So then that was like as of last summer, all these people had just gotten in. And one option was like, I could try and get in the way they got in, which is they got in by getting an older person to recommend them. So that one option was I could have tried it then with an older person as a recommender, because if the people listening don't know, but you need recommendations to go there.
Right.
And then the other option would have been I could wait till these people have been in for a year and then I could do it off of their recommendation. So I was like, shall I be recommended by my peers or by people who are older than me?
Right.
And I thought about it and I was like, I'm just not quite there yet. I was like, I was like, I'm a little bit so mentally when I'm, when I'm in my element, I'm great, but I'm easily shaken out of my element. So I was like, one more year, one more tour, bigger rooms,
Right.
more confidence, more material, a better understanding of, this last year I was finally getting to go to these clubs that are kind of intimidating, the ones you hear about, like Denver Comedy Works and Comedy on State, and these like clubs that touring comedians really like revere. And so I was like, if I can do those and I can crush at those, that will probably help me with like another famous club, which was the Cellar. So after this tour, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready. And then the other thing that I think helped me was all the recommendations I got were offered to me proactively. So that was the other sign that I think that I thought it was time, is that my recommenders were Jeffrey Osmus, John Rudnitsky, Jamie, and Casey. I got 4 just to be careful.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe Casey didn't offer. Maybe I asked Casey.
You got the first 3 and then you're like, Casey?
Yeah, I was like, you want to pile on the bandwagon? But
please.
But John was like, I've never recommended anyone. Why aren't you here? And then Jeffrey was also, it was one night we were talking, just like a group of us, and I was like, yeah, someone asked, I started getting asked why I wasn't at the Cellar, which was a good sign.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. I don't know who I'd ask necessarily. And like in that conversation, Jeffrey was like, I'll wreck you if you want. Wow. And then Jamie had been in for long enough that he felt comfortable doing it. Good. And so it just sort of felt like, eventually I like to do things that feel like a stretch, but not a crazy stretch.
Right.
So I still had a lot of fear around it, like a lot. And I still do. Like I'm there tonight and I am fearful today.
Yes.
But
and I hear first year is pretty much like that.
Yeah, but you know what? The other part was like I got to, in my first week, I've had 1 lousy set there, 1 decent set there, and 3 strong to very good sets there. And on those very good sets, you're like, it's such a confidence booster, because you're like, well, it doesn't get more intense than the Comedy Cellar in New York City. Like you're on the stage as all the greats, and these audiences expect the best. And then when you have a good set, you're like, okay, then I can really do this. So even like 3 good sets there in the last week, I'm like, oh, I think I'm, and she said something she saw me have a really good set, and she said something really nice to me. She being the booker that everyone fears, Esti Adoram, who's just a terrifying Israeli lady who holds all the cards. And
and she's been doing it for how long?
A million years. She's like a legend, and everyone fears her, and I fear her, and everyone, and she's awesome. But like, scared shitless when she's in the room, which
of course.
I'm sure she'd be like, I'm not scary, but that's part of what makes her scary.
Right. The scariest people are.
Yeah. She's
You're
not
like
she's not like, oh, I'm scary, because that's not scary.
No,
it's
that's not scary.
To be like, no, you're fine. And then it's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
So it was very scary to, certainly the audition, I couldn't sleep for a week, because I knew for a week that I had gotten one.
Scary.
And then there was like the sign, and it's like I grew up in New York, and like walking the sign, and you've seen so many famous videos and so many famous people in front of it, and then to be the guy that's in front of the sign, and you're like, holy shit, I have to like keep the ball in the air at the same level as these other people. But mentally, I think it'll be a good thing for me by the time, if I can settle in and if I can stay in. And if not, honestly, I have so much gratitude for getting to perform in that room, because that's just a huge moment for me. Right. So I think I've had a pretty good showing in the first like week, and I expect to continue seeing stage time there. But if I don't, I'll be at peace, because I did my best.
Yeah. Well, I do think what's so interesting about comedy now is that, I mean, I'm sure in the past it was like you get really good in New York, you get passed at the Cellar, and then you get like a late night set, and then you go on tour. But it's like you've been touring for 2 years. Literally headlining, like selling out your own theaters. And then now you're going back to the Cellar, which first of all speaks to is a testament to how unbelievable the Cellar is. Yeah. But also on the other hand is like the total decentralization of comedy now, and how like you just go directly to people, and the internet just enables you to do
it's
it in
hard
any
to
possible
get
way.
good. I mean, there's still like a million ways to cut it, but Yeah, I mean, if you can't develop audiences now, it's kind of hard to get stage time. And if you can't get stage time, you can't get good.
Right.
You know, places like the Cellar, I think there was a time when they were really developing people there. But nowadays, like,
it's like
you can't be a developmental act there. You know, it's just that level is too high. And so you can't just go there and figure it out up there. You have to go there and have like a very, you know, for me, it's like all these years working on the road. It's like I have a very clear vision of when I'm up there of who am I playing to? What's the feeling in the room? Which paths do I go? And like,
do you want some water? Do you want more water?
I love coughing like every 30 seconds.
Chris, do you mind?
Thank you, Chris. Sorry.
I was like, should I say something? Are you gonna ask?
No, it just gets progressively worse. The theme of the Cellar is
like the SpongeBob. Okay.
The kids are gay. The Cellar is a great place. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, some lead will do me good.
Yeah, it'll save you. It'll just line your pipes.
Yeah, that was great. But no, the thing about the reason why I'm really glad I haven't done the Cellar until now is because there's a lot of time with longer sets on the road where I've seen a lot of sort of like decision trees unfold. You know, you see like an older Midwestier crowd. If you want to go the liberal route, you got to say it a certain way so that you don't sound like a preachy New Yorker talking about how your political views are correct. If you want to do political jokes, like, you know, if you want to, you know, talk about like religion, you have to, you know, like if you want to talk about sex, you can't be too out there with sex stuff because these are not young people. And luckily for all these years of touring, I have developed like a very keen understanding of what my audience wants, but also I've begun to understand what the like random, especially this year when I got to do the good clubs where they're gonna sell tickets to people who live there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's not always my fans. Sometimes it's 50% my fans, sometimes 70% my fans, sometimes 80% my fans, but like there are people in there. And this year I really got to understand like who those people are. And those people in aggregate sort of are the people at the Comedy Cellar. They're people usually on vacation, sometimes from New York, who are seeing this thing that they like have heard a lot about. And you got to play to that sensibility. And you're not playing to the sensibility of, you know, young liberals in New York City. You're playing to the sensibility of like a very generalized, excited to see comedy. They don't want you to like, they're not offended. They don't want you to pull punches, but they also like, you know, they don't see things the way that you see things. And you have to say how you see things in a way that is approachable to them.
Right.
You know?
And also like, yeah, and at the Cellar, you get everybody because you get people, it's like world renowned. So like you get people who have never been to New York before. You get people who like live in New York and just
you get the European bomb. I had my first European bomb where that's like, it's like you're bombing, but they're not angry. And it's the weirdest feeling on earth. They seem to like you. They're smiling at you, but you're bombing. And you're like, I don't understand, because if you don't think what I'm saying is funny, you should hate me. Like if what I'm saying to you is not injected with humor, you must detest these perspectives that I'm espousing, but it's neither. And you're like, okay, that I guess that's a language barrier. So that's like, yeah, it's been strange.
Yeah.
And being at New York Comedy Club before that helped me with that.
Oh, cool.
It's like a whole year of performing for audiences that weren't my own and doing shorter sets really helped like remind me how to do this.
Yeah.
So now that I'm there, I feel it's only been 5 sets, so knock on wood, but I feel on stage, I feel like I'm prepared for this.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you want to feel. It's like, you know, it's like training for the Olympics. It's like when you get there, you want to feel prepared.
Yes. You want to feel like it's a reach, and like it's the most fun I've had doing comedy because I have that adrenaline again, because I have the fear again.
Right.
So it's like I feel like I'm performing. It kind of feels like starting comedy all over again, which is really fun because I kind of feel like I care a lot about every set, which is like, you know, when I do your show or
you're like, I don't give a fuck about your show.
I'm just like, I don't care if I bomb, really, you know?
Right,
I'd like to do well.
But that's why you will do the best on those shows, because you're like, you know, your body then is just loose, like to save it if it goes sideways or like whatever can happen.
I'm like in a good space, but I'm I'm physiologically not experiencing as much joy from doing it because it's much more normal to me what I'm doing. And then you do the cellar and it's like, the bombs feel way worse, but the kills feel way better. Because it's like if you're killing, you're like, oh my God, I'm like trying to do this and I'm doing it. And you're like fucking jazzed up. Like last night I had a set at the Cellar at 9 and I fell asleep at 3:30 because I was just like
you were
fucking jazzed up.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was like so fun. Just because I was so fucking nervous and then I did well. And I was like, that's awesome. You know?
Yeah.
Sound like a kid.
No, but it's
That's
awesome.
cool.
Like, it's so sick. That's like the most amazing thing about stand-up is that as terrifying as it is, it's phenomenal. It's like being a gambling addict. I think if people, I do think that if people analyzed our brains against like gambling addict brains.
It can't be much different.
It would be the same. There's just no way. And like the way that I like, I shirk all of my personal life to just do and pursue stand-up comedy. I'm like, there's no way that's like healthy.
No, it's not good.
It's not good, but it's like, I got
to see, on my 30th birthday party, I really got to watch like some of my fraying relationships materialize in front of my face. And that was like a big...
Really? Say more about that.
Like, I spent my whole 20s after I started stand-up. So not my whole 20s. I started from 24 to 30 years old. I said no to every social obligation that was asked of me every single weekend. And then, like, you get to your birthday party when you're 30 years old and you're like, I'm not as close with these people that used to be my best friends. And you can feel it and see it. And you're like, that's what, 175 no's will do to a relationship. Like, that's just...
But they still came.
Yeah. And that's almost worse,
Your
isn't
childhood
it?
friends, but you're probably a lot different from them now, too.
Yeah, and like, it's easier to talk to a comedian than it is to talk to someone I grew up with, and that's the path I've chosen. And it's not exactly that I don't regret my decisions, but there was a moment of sort of like lamenting the loss of what could have. Yeah, what
you can't have everything.
You can't.
There's just no world in which you have everything.
No, and in the world where you're stand-up, all you have is stand-up.
Exactly.
You can't have anything.
But can I just say, you literally have a girlfriend, though. So it's
that's true.
That's more than a lot of people can say.
Yeah, that's true. I do love my girlfriend. That's great.
And you have that relationship and support and like...
Yeah,
you're able
and
to
it's hard.
Oh.
Just to have a significant other. I don't mean my relationship personally, but like it's hard to have a girlfriend when you're a comedian.
Right.
Especially now that she has a day job.
Oh.
She didn't for a long time and now she does, and she works 9 to 5 and I work 5 to 9.
Right. So it's like literally when are you gonna, and it's only gonna get worse if you do well at the Cellar.
Yeah, I know.
You'll literally never see it.
She knows. She's been really cool about that, but she knows.
Yeah. She's like, well, I don't even
and
like
we have
you,
a dog
so
together.
Yes, so that's crazy.
Yeah.
You said I'm getting a dog and I was like,
Oh my God, totally insane.
Which, by the way,
choice.
would love to see the dog. Can't wait to see the dog.
She's adorbs.
I maybe like after this, but
yeah, but it's crazy.
Yeah, that's like an insane. I mean, you're literally gone, and then you're gonna be up all night at the.
Do you know what helps though? Is I do have a lot of money.
Oh right.
Do you know what I mean?
No, I always forget about money sometimes.
Money can really like. It's like, because if I need to send the dog to like a boarding school training program for 5 or 6 days because she doesn't want to be left alone and I want to go on the road, like I just will spend the money on that and then that will just solve the problem.
Wow.
So in that regard, money is actually quite
You're
helpful.
going to be such a good dad.
Yeah. I'm like, my kids are going to speak patois. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be able to say wagwan to my son, and that's because
to your
daddy's
white
gonna be
Jew
on
son.
daddy's gonna be on the road a little bit. We're gonna need some help, and we're gonna be calling it in from the islands. My son's gonna be running on island time.
Did you have a Jamaican nanny?
I had probably 200 nannies.
Oh, really? You didn't have like consistency?
Because of my sister and because of my brother.
Oh.
My brother would do insane things like burn things and try and scare them off.
Oh,
and then my sister would have special needs. And so between those two things, people did. Oh, and my parents are very rude to people that work for them. So between all of those, I forgot the missing piece.
Weird.
So between all of those things, I think it was pretty hard to keep people employed. And, I don't know if you know this about nannies, but they don't get paid very well. So it's like you're spending time with like a special needs girl, like a burgeoning heroin addict at this time.
Yes.
Me, who is like, I think I was mostly easy to hang out with, but like I wasn't like chill. And then
Right.
like you're being asked crazy things by my parents, and then it's like, why would you, all for like decent to bad money?
Right.
Yeah.
What
So,
an
but
interesting-
Jamaican on the list. Did we have Jamaican people? You're making me think about that. I'm not sure.
Was
A
that
little
hard
fun.
for you having so many people in and out of your life like that? Or
I
no,
took
'cause
it
there
all
was
right.
so much
I always
money?
got along with those people. I
Right,
always
so you
loved the
didn't-
nannies.
It didn't bother you that there was like fluctuation. Well, I guess that becomes the normal.
Yeah,
thing.
because if we really loved one, they usually stuck around for a few years.
Oh, okay.
And then sort of moved on when it was like a life stage thing, because you can't,
have a nanny forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a babysitter for 10 years, like the first 10 years of my life. So she was like my second mom.
Yeah.
And then she was like, okay, now I'm gonna go take care of my grandkids. And we were like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you were like,
Like I was like, I'm your kid.
yeah.
Like, so that was really
Do you still
traumatic.
keep in touch with her?
We did for a while.
Yeah.
And then at some point we sort of fell off.
We had someone like that kind of lasted us till we were like 7 or 8. And then I think she was English and she wanted to move back to England, which was
Oh.
fair. As much as we found that very upsetting. And then we had a Manny for a while named
Oh.
Sean, who I still keep in touch
Was
with.
he hot?
Yes.
Manny.
I don't know. Depends who you asked. He did well for himself though. I didn't think he was hot, but like I think he had a sexual prowess that
Ooh.
eluded my own
Something about a Manny feels kind of
hunky.
subversive and hot.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Like a male nurse.
Yeah.
That's hot, right?
I don't think male nurses are hot. I think they're
Really?
usually Filipino, which is hot. Sorry. I think they're hot. Did I just imply that the two the spectrum is hot or Filipino?
did.
Because I didn't mean that.
No. Okay. Also, are male nurses Filipino? I didn't
Yes.
know that.
Well, come on.
Do you interact with a ton of male nurses? You've like gotten the sample size?
Yes, because of how much I love Filipinos, I do interact with a lot of male nurses.
Two things about Lucas Zelnick: Filipinos and the hospital.
I love
When
Filipinos.
he's not doing stand up, he's in the
I'm in the hospital with Filipino male nurses. We're talking about the Philippines often. No, you know what? I have like a good sense of like what jobs certain types of people do because of how much crowd work I've done over the years.
Oh,
So it's really like
actually,
my mind
that's
is a
so
bit of like a
interesting.
census bureau. So it's like if I see like a short gay Filipino man, chances are he's a nurse.
Really?
Yeah.
And you'll like be like, "What do you do?" And you're like, "Nurse." Like you
yeah,
say it
like
at
if
the
I
same
saw
time.
you, okay.
Timmy, yeah.
Yeah, like advertising or marketing, right? That's
thank
like
you.
easy. You're welcome.
I think that means you think I'm pretty. So
And
that's
then
nice.
if I saw you,
And have
Chris,
an
it
eating
would be
disorder.
you'd have like a fake business, right? You run a podcast studio.
Podcasting, baby.
Yeah,
Best
so
fake
that-
business in the land.
Exactly.
There
so
you
it's
go.
like, and I know that because you have like a fade, but you have like a good hairline, but it goes high. And so like, yeah, I just like have a good read on like
yeah.
if what you look like typically yields a certain type of job.
Have you ever been like super wrong in a crowd?
I'm sure, but I'm pretty
pretty good
good
at
at
it now?
reading. Yeah, because I like to skip the pleasantries. Like I don't like to waste the time and like, what do you do? I just don't think it's that funny, and I think
Yeah.
that's what like people expect. So I try to assume that I know and then move forward from there. If I'm wrong, it can be tough.
Well,
Then I can try and make it funny. I'm like, you're not who I thought you were at all.
right, exactly, and then it becomes
Yeah.
okay. Cool. So wait, so what's like next for you? What are you excited about?
Trying to be an actor.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna try and get cast in a show that's coming up that I really want to be in. But I got very close on a movie in the spring. I got final 2 on a lead in a movie that's gonna be on Hulu.
Oh,
Didn't
sick.
get it.
Cool.
That was a bummer. But how close I got was inspiring. So I'm gonna take an acting intensive course over the summer.
Let's go.
That's actually not far from where we are right now. I'm gonna do. I think it's 15 hours a week. So I'm gonna like really kind of send it on
That's
acting.
awesome. What's the school?
William Esper Studio.
I've heard that's okay.
That's like
I was thinking about that one.
Yeah, you should
Should we do it together?
if you want. Yeah.
Wait, Loki. When does
I
it
don't know
start?
if it's. I think it's rolling admission. So I'd have to. I couldn't tell
Could you
how
vouch?
full. Yeah.
I
you
like
could-
think everything's comedy. I'm
you
like,
could-
you can vouch for me, right?
Well, I got in. To be honest, I think having like followers on the internet, which you also do, made it quite easy.
Oh.
I reached out and I was like,
I also have a drama background, to be honest.
yeah, and I was like, I have agents and managers and blah blah blah, and they were like,
Right.
Oh, great. But I also
I DM them.
said that I heard from Malik, who got cast.
Cool.
Malik got cast in this show Adults, which is coming out on May 28th. I just saw him, so I know that release date.
Are you going to the premiere?
No, I don't think I was invited.
Really?
Were you? Yeah.
Yeah.
I usually get invited to premieres, but not this one.
Damn.
Yeah.
Come.
You have a +1?
I already gave it to him.
Fuck. Well,
Fuck.
yeah, it's too bad.
Ask Malik.
Malik, could I please come to the premiere? When is it?
Wednesday.
This Wednesday?
Yeah.
I have a spot at the Cellar.
Well, there you go.
Can't do it.
No, I know. That's the thing with these events is like the more successful you get in comedy, like you just can't do anything.
Yeah, I would like to. I try to go to some of those kinds of things because I'm like, isn't that the perks of all this thing?
Yeah, it's like the
stuff we're
fun part,
doing?
and also it's like cool to like meet people outside of the. It's also work.
I think it's
you get to know-
worthwhile going.
It is worthwhile.
But
Like
yeah.
I think I'm at the point where like if it's a bar show versus something like that, it's like choose that.
Yeah, I agree.
Because or like certain spots that like where it's like so valuable to get a rep, and of course, but I think like long term.
I try to go to like 3 SNL after parties a year, for example, for that reason.
Because it's nice to be a player in
and
the
just to
space
like rub elbows with like people that are annoying.
Yeah,
you know?
and you text Casey and you're like, please.
Yeah.
You know what my joke is about the SNL after party?
Mm.
Always like, do you think anyone's? I think the funniest way to kill yourself would be in the middle of the SNL
That'd be
just
awesome.
around like the A-list elite.
Yeah.
Just a gun.
Just a gun.
It has to be a gun.
Yeah.
Because there's got to be spatter.
Just blood spatter on Charlie XCX.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
Lorne Michaels at his table and you just shoot yourself in the head.
Yeah.
No warning. Like not like a speech, like nothing. No, just true shock value.
No harm done to any other person there.
Isolated.
Yeah.
But there's just got to be like a lot of mess.
Just a chunk from your skull landing on Bill Hader's head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally.
And everyone's wearing like designer clothes and everyone's like so like
Yeah.
And it's like so chic and elite and like and then you just
go up to maybe like because you know how they usually have like little like past hors d'oeuvres or handheld food sometimes.
Yeah.
Like grab like one of those like mini cheeseburgers and be like snacking on it and go introduce yourself to Lauren in a way that's like a little bold.
Yeah, that's
but it
like
doesn't matter because you're
inappropriate.
about to shoot your.
Yeah, so it doesn't. You don't need it.
You're like, hi, Mr. Michaels. Like, I know this is crazy, and I know you're at work, and I don't want to bother you. But,
you're so polite about it,
yeah,
though.
you're like, I don't want to bother you,
yeah.
and I can see you're in the middle of a conversation, so I just wanted to say one thing. But
I can see you're talking to the president or the Pope or something.
Yeah.
But
I'm Lucas Zelnick. I'm a comedian. I'm a huge fan of the show, and it just means the world to be able to meet you. Take a bite of the mini cheeseburger and shoot yourself in the fucking face. Shoot yourself like in a way, like a way that like you don't have like a sawed-off shotgun and blow your whole head off. Stick a grenade in your mouth and just eat a grenade and just explode. No, grenade does too much damage to the surrounding people.
You don't want to kill anyone else.
Yeah.
It has to just be you.
A sawed-off shotgun to the.
But you have to ruin everybody's life.
It's also it has to be fast.
It has to be
Like
so
you
fast
can't,
that no one could stop you.
You don't want like Lauren to be like no, because
Yeah.
then you have to like live with what you almost did instead of die with what you definitely did, which is way better.
Which is so much better.
I love that. That's an awesome way to kill yourself.
Thank you. So I just like, we always have that in our back. I just got to keep my network alive just in case I ever want to.
I do think like people that kill themselves are usually too sad to bring to it a sense of levity.
Right. Like to
which
have
is
that
too bad
foresight. Yeah.
Because it is like my friend actually talks about this. He calls it altering, but he's like, when he talks about suicide, he's like, how many people's lives could I alter in the process? Like he talks about like Coachella. One of his favorite alters is he climbs up like a scaffolding on the main stage on the side. You'd have to get around security and then just hangs yourself in front of like
a lot of people.
Yeah, in front of like
see, that's not as
100,000
funny though.
people.
Like there's nothing funny about that. That's like
it's not funny, but it is impactful.
That would be super impactful.
Yeah.
But and people would be really
But yes,
upset.
the SNL after party is like definitely a funnier suicide.
Well, because I think it's also like it's a commentary.
Yeah. It's funny to be like killing yourself with like a gin and tonic in your hand.
Yeah, like at a cocktail party.
Cocktail. Yeah.
In front of like the most important people in the industry.
I think you'd have to shoot up to make sure you don't hurt anyone.
Really? I was thinking across. So I was
but
picturing
then who's next to you? Because if you blow your brains out.
Stand on a chair, middle of the room.
But not say anything.
Not say anything. Just really quick.
Just jump up on a chair and blow your brains out.
Pull a chair out.
Right. I wonder that not enough people will be looking at you.
No, they'll see after.
Oh, I see.
I don't need them to see it at the time.
They don't need to see the moment.
No,
they can just hear the bang and
yeah, they just hear the bang and they're like, "What was that?" And then it's like, and there's blood all over everybody.
right. Yeah. And they got to like carry you out of Saks Fifth Avenue or wherever they're having it that night.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And then it's in the news, and then everyone's like on Jimmy Fallon, like, yeah, I watched someone kill
Have you
himself.
been to the after party?
Yeah, a couple times.
And they have like, you know, the small, sad crowd of paparazzi hanging outside.
Yeah.
There's nothing more
and it's
upsetting
like
to
5
me.
a.m. and it's like, what?
So I went this weekend, and there's nothing more upsetting to me than how disappointed they look when I walk out.
That's so
I'm like, I
funny.
really thought I was doing something this
Yeah,
year. But we
no
have
matter
a couple
how
more
important
years.
you feel, there's always ways to be humbled.
Oh my gosh, they don't give a fuck there. But I'm gonna try to act.
Yeah, so maybe
or
one
get
day you will
SNL,
be.
but I just don't think. I just don't think I'm in. I don't think they want me in that world. I'd be honored to be on the cast there, but I just get the sense that that's not going to happen for me.
I feel that way about myself.
Yeah.
I just something about it. Something feels like I just don't know if.
Yeah, you can tell what kind of social crews, because crews move into jobs together in certain ways, and you know I'd love to, but I don't.
And honestly,
the
people on the show are always like really so unbelievably talented and funny, and it's like a great.
Yeah, are they watching?
They're watching, in case they're watching. No, but I do mean that. I think that like I.
Yeah. I mean,
there's so many amazing.
You
people
know,
on
this
there.
was like Emil's like a good friend of mine from stand up, and him getting it this year was the first one of like, holy shit, like
like
that's even awesome that you know my friends are like legitimately getting SNL cast, but I'd love that for myself too, and I just don't see it. But I think I could get cast in something, so that's my goal.
I think you can absolutely.
And if not, stand up until I'm like so good that I'll put out a special. But that's like I think I need it 2 or 3 more years. Before it's ready.
I think that's the same. Yeah, I think the thing about stand up that I have to constantly remind myself is that it's a marathon.
Oh yeah.
And it takes so long to get good. And every time you think you're good, you're not good.
Yeah.
Like there's some more to go.
The breakout specials, like Jordan Jensen just recorded a special.
Yeah,
and I
so
think that one will
exciting.
break out. And if that one breaks out, I think that will make sense because I think she's been in it like 11 years, maybe 12, maybe 10. I don't know. But like an amount of time that's significantly more than I am.
Right.
And to know that that's like, this is her first hour long, I'm like, that feels right for me. That timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. So wait, what's your most embarrassing moment?
Oh shit. Did you tell me to prepare that?
I did tell you to do that.
I didn't even prepare that.
You already talked about shitting yourself and you said some like weird racially charged things. So like today could be a good one.
Okay, yeah. I just want to say that I'm embarrassed to say that Filipino people are the opposite of beautiful. That's like really embarrassing
was
because
really
I don't
embarrassing.
believe that.
Yeah,
I
it's
think Filipino
factually
people are
truly
lovely
inaccurate.
and gorgeous.
Very beautiful race.
Handsome race. Yeah, handsome and beautiful.
No, what's your most embarrassing moment should be that you were really mean to me that one time.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, if you get like to be the most successful person on earth, then you'll always have that over me, you know?
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I can like call upon that and be like,
Yeah.
Lucas.
Who's rich now? Me, but independently.
Yeah. Me and my parents would never pay for an Uber.
Yeah.
Unless I asked them to. Unless I was in a real
I think if you got
bind.
like independently crazy rich, they'd probably offer to pay for an Uber for you. Because they'd be like, she's fine. She's got it. You know what I mean?
Actually, yeah. I think that's so true.
If you got like rich, they'd probably start paying. They'd be like, what jeans do you want?
Yeah, they'd be like, we want to get you something.
Yeah.
That actually happens now a little bit more that
Really?
they know that I'm totally.
Because they're like, you're on your own path.
Right, but now
they're
they
worried
can get
about
me a gift.
They're worried about like ruining you. But they
Right.
believe you've found an ambition and a passion. And so now they no longer are, right?
Right. So now they know that I'm completely. They're not worried about me being able to be independent. Which
Yeah,
I
or
think was
you
their
being
fear.
like becoming mooching off them because you've found a thing that you're invigorated by.
Right. Which, to be fair, I always like from the womb. I was like super
Invigorated.
focused. on
Maybe they've
everything.
just decided you're old enough.
Yeah, and I think also like proof of concept and stuff.
Yeah.
Like they were really scared when I
Did this.
because
For
they
sure.
love stability.
Yeah.
I didn't have the conversation your parents had with you, but no. Let's do a good one, like a childhood one, like a prom, like a shit yourself in front of people, puke. That's a
there's
common.
one that comes to mind. I've told it before, but I'll tell it again because I don't think that you guys are very familiar with my podcast catalog, but obviously you know about how
people
I
who are listening
talk about my body. always got to start with the body talk and then. Okay, this is one. Okay. Senior year of high school, everyone in New York City goes to all the private schools, I should say, go to Paradise Island in the Bahamas for spring break.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
That's the most New York City private school thing I've ever heard in my life.
And the idea is you're 18 and that's when you can drink there and everyone goes and it's like it's like a college level spring break and
all of your parents are just like, okay.
Everyone's like, yeah, that's fine. You could go. And so we do. And usually you stay at Atlantis. That's like where most of the schools stay, Atlantis. Okay. For some reason, I don't know if it was who organized our trip or our school's preference, because it's not through the school, but it's the school knows you're going to do it, but it's not like they don't sanction it. But we were staying at like some place that was just awful. Like it was an all-inclusive resort. Every meal was a buffet. All the water was tap. And so what was happening to us, unbeknownst to us, was we were getting food poisoning throughout the course of the trip.
Straight up dysentery, yeah.
But the other part of the trip is that you're supposed to like be doing wild stuff sexually. But as it happens with me and my friend group, we all were in long-term relationships. Like I was with my high school sweetheart.
Aww.
And I just like, we were like, I don't know what wild stuff we can do sexually. So I guess what we had settled on in our like drunken state was we're going to have sex in front of each other. We had adjoining rooms and all these couples like open the doors and we would just like fuck during the day sort of at will in front of other couples who were also fucking during the day at will. That was what we decided on.
You had a premeditated conversation.
No, it wasn't premeditated, but it was like the premeditation aspect of it was like we should do something that feels worthy of a story and we weren't going to like cheat on each other there. So that's like what we did. And I was having public sex in my room with my then girlfriend. And at that moment, I realized that I was going to have the worst diarrhea of my life. And
while you're inside of
I was inside of her. And
this is a crazy
then I had that thought of like, well, you know, just like, let's just do this and then I could do that after. And then there was that second thought of like, that's not going to work because I'm not going to make it till after. And also think about like when you're having sex, you're really in a moment.
Yeah.
You got to be really sick for your body to overpower that moment with its sickness.
I actually thought that would be impossible because your body like shuts off.
You literally think so. Like it's the same with stand-up. It's called like stage health. Like it's hard to be, even if you're not feeling well, it's pretty hard to be sick in the middle of something that's like
that
intense.
Demanding on your body.
Yeah, or like adrenaline or physical or sexual or whatever. But I had to shit bad. So I ran out of her vagina straight to the bathroom and I let out the most disgusting like hack diarrhea. You know what I mean? Like uncreatively, like the fart was like literally like in an 80s comedy, the fat guy farts like that, you know, like just like.
And you're a little string bean at that point.
Yeah,
too.
and I'm Skeletor and I'm just filling the toilet, but I'm also hard. And so my dick is up and I'm pissing all over myself and on the floor. But the contractions of the diarrhea are so demanding that I'm filling the toilet and I can't do anything really with my penis. But I also can't poop without peeing. I think we can all agree that that's kind of a thing. So I'm pissing all over myself and like it's like shooting up like a fountain. It's sort of like landing in my lap and on the floor. And then I'm filling the toilet with shit. And then I farted so loud that my friends from the adjacent room, because we're having public sex, start coming in. So there's a crew of people surrounding me. And I'm like,
are these the friends I met, by the way?
One of them was. Not who you're thinking, but you would have been at the party with one of these people.
Okay.
One was his girlfriend, who they're not together anymore, and I'm not really friends with her anymore. But I'm holding my penis, I'm pissing everywhere, I'm shitting, they're all watching. And then at one point, I was like, how do I get my...
Wait, they're watching because the bathroom door's open?
The bathroom door's open because I'm in such an state of emergency. I couldn't... Closing the bathroom door would have led to shit on the floor.
No one was like, let me just close this.
Everyone was like, oh my God. But we're all drunk too, so it's like... And we're high schoolers, so it's like part of it is like, oh my God, this is awful. And part of this is like, this is so funny. This is why we came here, is like to watch someone do something like this.
Great, this is insane.
So I'm trying to like find a way to put my penis into the toilet, but it's like a small hotel toilet. I'm not trying to say I have a big dick here, but
it was hard. So
it was hard. It was as big as it gets, which is to say, fine. And I put it down and I'm wiping it in shit because the shit has splattered into the toilet bowl. So my dick's covered in shit and I'm shitting and pissing. And I had food poisoning for the rest of the trip. So that was, that was probably the last time I had sex on that trip. And
in your life.
And yeah, and then and since then I've been celibate.
Understandable.
Forever. Yeah, that was pretty embarrassing.
What did your friends say? Like, what did they
There wasn't much to say. It was all kind of out there. Anything to say after that would have felt obvious.
Yeah, there's like no way to, it's like an imitation.
Wow, you diarrheaed while hard. Do you know what I mean?
It's like doing bits about like Donald Trump. It's like we can't really top what
right,
he's doing.
What's happening.
Yeah, that's kind of like the peak.
So in my memory of it, I just remember that it was physically demanding to have diarrhea at such an intense scale. Yeah. And years later, I would have a similar problem with constipation.
Wow.
So that was one of, honestly, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone?
Yeah.
Diarrhea.
Can I say, like, that might be the craziest story I've ever heard.
Oh, really? That's amazing.
That's got to be up there, right?
I mean,
like,
I'm glad I didn't prepare, but I would say that's a pretty shoe-in story for me when I think of most
like an embarrassing story.
Yeah.
Because, like, I've had dysentery because I studied abroad in Nepal.
Yeah.
And I've told this on a pod before as well, but I had dysentery like the morning after hooking up with someone. And he was like in bed next to me and I had to like literally go have dysentery.
Yeah.
In an adjacent bathroom.
Right.
Which was...
Saying dysentery is funny. It's like you're trying to make diarrhea ladylike or something.
It was diagnosable.
By making it 1800s.
No, I know, but it was literally diagnosed.
Right.
Literally, I was in Nepal.
Right.
I didn't call it dysentery. The doctor did.
I think the only thing that made it better for me is that it was a long-term girlfriend.
Yes.
So I wasn't like...
Okay, so it wasn't like, I'm trying to make an impression on this person.
Yeah,
it's like,
I mean, I made an impression on that person regardless.
Yeah, did she ever have sex with you again?
She did.
And that's like a testament
to
But that was
the beginning of the end. She did break up with me, I would say not long after that
She got the ick, maybe?
I think
Can you imagine telling that story from her perspective? Like, yeah, I don't know, I just got the ick.
And sick.
I'd just be like, I got the ick, like at brunch with her friends. And then they're like, wait, why? What happened? And they're like, because the icks are like, he tied his shoelaces and she's like, yeah. But
he did a complete paint job in the Paradise Island all-inclusive bathroom while covering his own dick and shit. Icky.
I'm actually gonna pee. This is so funny. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That was really beautiful.
Thanks for having me on this podcast.
And thank you for coming on the pod. This was a really, really meaningful conversation.
Good. I'm glad.
And I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Great. Where can we find you?
Lucas Zelnick on Instagram and TikTok, and my website is lucaselnick.com. And Google. You could Google me there.
Give you. But yeah, you have some tour dates coming up in the fall?
I will, yeah, in the fall. I'm going to go back on tour. It's going to be at least 30 cities, all the good ones.
All the relevant ones.
Boston, Chicago, Nashville, Denver. Fuck.
You don't
New York.
You don't have to list 30 cities.
Yeah.
But that's great. I'm really excited for you. It's always a pleasure to interact. I'm excited for where you're headed. You've already achieved so much, and yeah, it's great. Great chatting.
Thank you.
But yeah, okay.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.